channel. In the previous session, we talked about how to install Pandas, how to create a virtual environment, and how to tackle with a different version of Python. Also, we talk about the Jupyter Notebook, how to work with the Jupyter Notebook. But in this session, we won't jump into Pandas, and we talk about DataFrame, how to create DataFrame with a different kind of ways. Okay. At first, you need to actually create a new notebook by clicking on the Python free in the new. And then when you open your notebook, don't forget to change its name. I set it as a DataFrame. Okay. At the first step, you need to import your required library. For example, Pandas is the first and important library that I used in Pandas library, of course, tutorial. But I prefer to import numpy as well because frequently I use numpy, so I may need in further. I run Pandas and numpy. And the first way of creating a data frame is array. What is a data frame? Data frame is a kind of a table. So when I want to create a data frame, I set df1, for example, pandas.dataframe, and then I use a tab to accelerate my speed, and then I can go down and up with the arrows on my keyboard and press enter if I want to, for example, choose this data frame. Okay, and then when I open the parentheses, when the cursor in the parentheses, I can click on a shift tab. Then there is a guide here that you can find out how many arguments do you need, what kind of arguments you need to pass, for example, data, index, columns, dtype, complex, dtype and the copy are the arguments for a data frame. Also, you can find about the parameters, read about them, and further maybe you can find some examples here. Okay, if you don't know about some functions or some module, you just need to use the shift tab to learn more about that. Okay, the first argument was data. I want to pass an array as a data into my data frame, so I say, for example, numpy.array, and then I create an array. For example, I want to create 2-dimensional array. As you can see, here is 2 brackets. If I want to create a 3-dimensional, of course you need 3 brackets here. Okay, 2-dimensional is more easy, so I create a 2-dimensional array. The first row is 1, 2, 3, and the second row, for example, is 4, 5, and 6. I pass it data into the data parameter. The second argument is columns. For example, you can see here, this is the row, and of course it has 2 rows and 3 columns, isn't it? So I need to set 3 names for columns. For example, the column 1 is A, the column 2 is a B, for example, and the column 3 is C. This is enough for here. I run it df1 and also print it. Shift enter to run. As you can see, 1, 2, 3, and the first row with the column A, B, C, and the 4, 5, 6, as you can see, is the second row with the columns A, B, and C. The other argument that I can set here is index. The index is the name of each row. The column is the name of each column, and the index is the name of each row. In default, it's set it from 0 to blah blah blah, 1, 2, 3, 4, but you can set it as, for example, everything that you want. For example, I set it here as int1 and int2, and then run it. As you can see, the 0 turned into an int1 and the 1 turned into int2. Okay, this is the way that you can create data frame using array. The second way is dictionary. Okay, I said df2. It's a symbol of second data frame. Pandas a data frame tab to accelerate at my speed. And data, let's create our data. I said I want to use a dictionary, so the dictionary is nominated with bracket. And for example, I said the first key as a name. For example, I don't know, John. The second name, for example, Jack, thanks to this simple name, Rose. And the second key is age here. For example, I don't know, 12, 25, 38, just a random number. And then I put this data as my data. And I can set a columns, but it is not necessary here. Why? Because the name and the age act as a column, and the John, Jack, and the Rose put it into a row. Okay, let's run it to understand it better. Here, the name is the name of my column, and the age is the name of my column as well. And as you can see, the John, Jack, and the Rose put it in different rows. Okay, if I set the columns, for example, I said the column's name is name and age in quotation, of course. As you can see, it doesn't have any different. The name comes in the first and the age comes into the second. But if I said age and the name, as you can see, the age come into the first and the name come into the second, because it try to compatible these data with the columns. If I set another age, what is happened here? Another age is added. If I put something other than name and age, for example, if I put, I don't know, A, or better than A, call 1 and call 2, what's happened here? It creates an empty data frame because there isn't any adaptation between this data and the column, so it couldn't match the call 1 with the name and the call 2 with the age, or vice versa. So remember that if you use a dictionary, be careful about the columns, okay? So let me change this into, or nothing. I can put it nothing because name and age is clear for columns. And we can actually use an index as well. For example, I can use a numpy that arrange instead of, for example, put it int1, int2, and int3. For example, I say numpy arrange 3, and it turn it into 1, 0, 1, and 2. And the default as well is 0, 1, and 2. Okay. Let's go into the third way. The third way is creating an empty data frame. Okay. DF3, nominated as data frame number 3, and the pandas.dataFrame. I can use it as data frame with the columns, for example. Just define the columns. For example, I can say number name A and B, and for example C word for the third columns. And when I want it and print it, you can see that this is the empty data frame with the column A and B, C. And also we can add it some index. For example, I can put it in the 1, in the 2, put it into quotation, and in 3. Okay, Let's run. As you can see, it created a non-data frame with the columns A, B, and C, and the index int1, int2, and int3. Also, I can create more than 3, 4, and 5 easily, but numpy that arrange, for example, 100. Okay, you can see it creates a data frame with 100 rows and 3 columns. Okay, the first and the last way of creating data frame is reading data frame. Okay, this kind of way is such as create a data frame by ourselves, but sometimes there is a data frame in your computer and just you want to read that. So in this way, you need to have this kind of formats. Let's check it. Data frame for pandas.read. You can have CSV, Excel, feeder, I don't know, HDF, HTML, JSON, and a lot of formats that you can see here. So I choose a CSV because I have a CSV file here. And the first argument is the path of your CSV, and the file that I want to use is here. So just I put it the name CSV, just enter df4. Oops, there is a problem. It said that there isn't a directory as a weather here. Let me check. Forgot to put a weather CSV here. So now when I run it, I can see the weather data frame. It has this number of rows, 60,743, and 14 columns. Okay, let me check about the more parameters with the read CSV. Okay, let's just copy this here, and for example I go through into the header. What is a header works here? As you can see, this is the name of my columns. For example, station location, station code, station city, date year, date week of, date month, and blah blah blah. But you want to put this, for example, row as your header or any kind of rows that you want. So just set a number here. For example, I set it 1 as a header, and as you can see, the name of my headers change into the 1 here. For example, you can see Birmangan al as instead of station city, Birmangan station location, Birmangan al become the name of my header. Okay. Instead of header, we can use, for example, names to change the name of, for example, columns, all of them. For example, the name of column is not in the rows and you just want to set it by yourself. So you can set it, for example, here, A, B, C, everything that you want, but it is too much here to set it 14 actually names. So I just put numpy.arrange to show you how it is works. For example, I put it 13 here, and as you can see, it's a start from 0 into 14. Okay, the other things that I want to talk about it's about the head. For example, if I said df4.head, it show you just 5 rows of your data frame. But if you set it, for example, 10 here, it show you the 10 of them. If you set it 20, it show you, for example, 20 of them. But when the number of actually head that you want to print, it goes up, for example, 200. Just 5 of them from above and 5 of them from the below. You can see it here. The other way to show and print your data frame is using a tail. For example, if you want to print a data frame from down to up, you can set it, for example, 20 here. If you put nothing, it show you the 5 rows from the below to up. If you set it, for example, 30 here, it show the last 30 rows from your data frame here. Okay, and the other things that maybe important when you want to work with DataFrame is using a sample. When you want to just check it some random rows from your DataFrame, you can use it as sample. If I choose a sample without any specific number, just it gives me one of the rows in a sample in random. But for example, if I put it at 10 here, 10 actually rows randomly it shows for me. For example, as you can see, this number, it doesn't have any rules or definition, so it just randomly it show us, because when I want just to know that how is our data frame look like. Okay, thank you very much for watching this session. In the next session, we talk about how to create a series and indexes very well. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.